Yeah, I mean the first one. Yeah, you're going to start out talking, right?
Yeah, we're gonna start in well, uh, it looks like the I'm working on getting the Instagram started. But yeah, so I'm gonna start talking and let everyone know, hey, welcome guys to another Behind the Stories. I'm here with the incredible Casey Charles, who is the author of Undetectable, a fabulous memoir. If you have not picked it up, you really, really, really need to. I was blessed to be Casey's editor, so we may end up going off on little tangents here and there, just
Yeah.
as a heads up. But just to totally just jump into it. So, okay, Casey, why, what made you say, I've got to write this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think originally I just tell people that I had a friend who was a creative writing MFA student in Montana that knew me well and knew my partner, and so he said, "You've got to tell your story because
Mm,
you had HIV for a long time, and this was in the 2015 or 2010 or something."
mhm,
And so but I think I'm not sure whether for memoir writers that's a good way into thinking about what made you do it. Someone urged
mm,
you to do it, and rethinking your question. And I really felt like surviving HIV is a really important issue to talk about. And since
mm,
I went through the struggle of it, I thought, this is a good thing for people to know, that you can have the virus and you can overcome all kinds of opportunistic infections and, still have a life and still fall in love and still, do all the kinds of things you want to do. So, that was kind of like that's where I finally landed in
mhm.
terms of, okay, I'm not going to write Heaven's Coast or Paul Monet's books about people dying, which is good. They were great books and they
Yeah,
were fantastic memoirs in the 80s. But I wanted to go like, what about people that are continuing to live with HIV?
yeah,
So
and when you and I were first talking about it, I remember if I remember correctly, for both of us, a lot of it too was getting rid of that stigma, right? Because so many people have survived HIV and are living um, quite fulfilling lives.
yeah,
And to your point, I think the importance of really, bringing this forward, it just made it that much more important.
yeah, you're right. You're right. And there are tons of people that, and now even more.
Mm,
Yeah, which
yeah,
is not, which is not to say this it's really a serious and can be really problematic infection and
mhm,
virus to have inside you, and I tried to keep that in mind as well as I wrote through the book.
mm,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so I mean, one of my chapters. I know I have to get the next question, but one of my chapters is about going through a kind of retreat in Montana, where a
Mhm,
lot of 21-year-old or 22 or 3-year-old guys who had HIV gave a little panel,
mm,
and they were seeing it as just kind of like having diabetes or having something just become a manageable disease, and not really, and of not really realizing the entire impact of the pandemic and how they are part of that. So I really
mm.
felt like my book was important because it emphasized the seriousness of it as well.
Got it. Wow, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Um, so you and I actually talked quite a bit about the structure of the story and where should it really begin. But what really first sparked the the first draft of the story, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, I really wanted to tell the story of my relationship with the lover who I got HIV from,
Mm,
um, and I wanted to talk. The question that overlays the entire piece is the way in which love can be dangerous, or
mhm,
yeah, basically, you have this kind of romantic impulse that brings you together, and then you get a disease that pulls you apart, or that could actually lead to death, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds really heavy, but that was the way it was, especially in the 80s and even the 90s. So you
Hmm.
have this kind of this strange way in which the very thing that we all seek can also be extremely dangerous. And I wanted to explore that with my lover in the 90s that I got it from. And that was, I had to get that on paper in a way um, that would, you know, as you know, complicate all the emotions.
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
you helped me straighten, well, not straighten those out, but you helped me get to the point a lot of the times, because I'd have all of these long sentences and, digressions, and it's all about desire and love and, Lacan and all this stuff. And, having an editor that says, tell your story, not
Mhm.
somebody else's story, helped me kind of, weed it out and get just, the essence of it in front of the reader, you
Well,
know?
and my God, I mean, that's so hard because, I mean,
Yeah.
you're living with it, right? It's not like the emotion suddenly disappeared.
Right, that's true. And when you're writing, it's still there too. So having an editor that can see, what a reader, I don't know, can see what a reader would want to draw from it versus
Mm,
inside the writer, what he needs to or she needs to get out on paper.
mhm.
So there's that back and forth that's really important.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I was gonna say that that self-discovery, that exploration was imperative just to even get to the point of, okay, this is fabulous.
yeah,
And, what is it though that we're really trying? What's the purpose of us telling this story?
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And you really did a lot of amazing work to get there.
yeah,
Seriously, you really
yeah.
did.
And then, I think one of the things that in the questions you were
Mm,
asking, I think memoirs are important in terms of telling one's personal story, but they
mhm,
also require a kind of a competency or an intelligence about the culture that you're in. And the
ah,
reader really, really wants to know, what is HIV and where did it come from and what communities have it and who else has it. And
mhm,
so, even though you're telling your story, you're also describing a whole, situation. I mean, you have other memoir writers in your publishing house, and you kind of find out about a world. You just don't
mhm,
find out about a person in a memoir. So I think that opened me up to thinking into the science of HIV,
mhm,
to the activism and
mhm.
the politics and all that stuff.
Wow,
You know,
that's an excellent point.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was thinking about that when I read over your questions.
Mm.
Mm.
So why this story? Why do you feel like this story is important now, in today's? I'm just riffing off of the your point about, society and culture, right? Um, what makes that extra important in considering our world today?
Well, in contemporary gay culture today, I could talk about that, but also,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole thing about medicine in general and the problems we're having with healthcare, and um, how people might, like for example, in Florida recently, DeSantis wants to throw people off ADAP, which is the
Wow.
federal program that helps people get drugs,
Mhm.
and and these drugs cost $2,000 or $3,000 a month. So if you
Wow.
don't have insurance or you don't have an ADAP program and you're HIV positive, you're not going to be undetectable for very long. And
Mhm.
so, and there's still no cure. So getting to the specific point about HIV, people need to know that that's still a very precarious situation in a lot of cases, and
Mhm.
especially the political climate today. Um, with our with our health system on the front lines, and so there's that, but also I think the story is really important for people to I mean, we talked about how to survive. It's a survival story, right? I mean, so many
Yeah.
stories are survival stories, but this is like, what do you do when you face a death sentence, whether it be HIV or cancer or anything? I mean, um, how do you I kept asking myself, what do you do to deal with it?
Right.
Do you get God? Do you go to groups? Do you meditate? Do you just ignore it? All those different ways in which we cope. And so
Mm,
I think the book explores those in ways that I hope were helpful in terms of I don't know. I mean, yeah, as you know, I can come down on um, the part of just struggling. I mean,
mm,
just not avoiding how difficult and how important it is to survive. Um,
mhm.
I have the introduction where I'm floating in the water um, when my raft on the river, Clark Fork River goes over, and you're just trying to stay afloat, and you're
Yeah.
going under, and you're coming up, and you're going under, and you're coming up. But there's something about just talking about that. I don't know. I think that's really important, and then to clear away all of the Louise Hay stuff that if you just believe in this magic or this herb that you're going to be okay. I
Mm. Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
I don't know. That doesn't make sense, but it makes a little bit of sense.
No, I mean, I love the metaphor of the raft and you know, feeling like you're drowning and then coming up. And I mean, I thought that was a fabulous way of starting the memoir itself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and selfishly, I actually thought we could hit on both, like overall healthcare today. And I think you hit that beautifully, right? In terms of how
Mhm.
precarious it is, just even
Yeah.
being able to get coverage anymore. But I honestly, I would love your thoughts in terms of within gay culture in general, like how is HIV perceived now? 40 years later, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of well, now with the people being undetectable and with PrEP,
Mm,
which is a prophylactic that you can take if you're and people know that already, but if you're not positive and you want to have unsafe sex or unprotected sex, you can take a pill and
mm.
pretty much avoid HIV if you do it correctly. But
Wow.
yeah, so it's pretty amazing, and that has kind of taken a lot of the onus off being able to be partnered or date for people that are HIV positive and undetectable. But
Mhm.
what's happened, at least from my experience with the gay community, is that people are starting to really get a little bit lax and negligent around having sex, and
Mm,
so there's this whole kind of other set of STDs and stuff that are becoming more and more prevalent. And so, HIV is also not impossible to get. I mean, you can
yeah,
have a broken condom, and there's all ways you can get it, and then then you have to, have your blood test. You have to, get on these meds that are extremely expensive, and there's no
mm,
cure. So, um, the gay community needs to be aware that it's not something that's over.
mm.
And I don't want to be beating a dead horse, but the horse is not dead.
Right,
I
right, yeah.
mean, so I mean, it's but somewhat of a cautionary tale
Mhm,
because if you're HIV positive, you have to deal with that. If you partner up, you've got to tell the person or not, and that
well, you
you've got
should.
you good, right? Especially if you're going to get intimate with somebody, and then
Yeah,
the two of you have to deal with that. And my long-term partner was not positive, and
mm,
so we had to negotiate that. And that was a time when I was not undetectable because they didn't
mhm,
have a viral load test. So I mean, even today, if you're undetectable, it's not going to end all the problems that exist for you as a couple, or even
mhm,
with somebody that you're dating. So um, yeah, so I think for the gay community, my memoir is supposed to do two things. On the one hand, give hope to people that are HIV long-term survivors,
mhm.
um, and on the other hand, to tell them, it's still, um, you know, I don't want to swear on camera, but it's still a pretty much a shit scene in terms of how taking care of yourself. You got to be really careful, and you got to, you got to. So, in some ways, I mean, I so the message is two different things. I mean, for me, HIV also got me in shape, believe it or not.
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm,
I was running and stuff before it. In a
mhm,
matter of fact, I've kind of, but um, it made me aware of two things: of how important the body is,
mm,
and how to keep your body, in shape,
mhm,
and then also how important socializing can be for people that have some illness or
mm,
situation in their life. So I ended up joining groups, which I never did before, um,
mhm,
as you know from the episodes that I had. And I ended up interviewing a lot of people for the book, and then some of them
mhm,
fell away. But the
mhm.
others, I went and, just like unbelievable stories that I heard. And
Yeah,
those were really important for me. And being, kind of a snobby professor, I probably would never have done that if I hadn't been HIV positive. Not a
yeah.
snobby professor, but you know what I mean.
No, I love that. Own it, man. Own
Being
it.
the Shakespearean that I was, like, but then to go to some, community center and sit with 30 people in a circle, men
Mhm,
and women, drug
mhm,
users, everybody, that are just there, crying and telling their story is,
mhm.
you know, I have to be thankful, that was kind of a silver lining for me to open my eyes to the world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and honestly, anything like this, it can be so isolating,
Yeah.
both intentionally and unintentionally. So the fact that you used it as an opportunity to actually broaden your
Yeah.
world is tremendous, and it actually shows how on a multitude of layers you you can really overcome something like this.
Yeah, yeah. But I do have to say it was very difficult to tell my family and
Mm,
the people I grew up with,
mhm.
and
Oh, I'm sure.
negotiating that is really difficult because rather, you can go to a high school and talk about HIV and
Mhm.
safe sex and talk to 30 kids, but you get into a room with your father, and then it's another man. It's a whole different ball
Well,
game.
I was gonna say, like, so how was it? And then I'll ask the more,
Uh, yeah,
standard questions in a minute. But like what how was it received by your close friends and family? Um, like I can't even imagine having to tell the people whom you know, care for,
yeah,
uh, that, "Hey, I basically have something that back in the '80s and '90s, it was considered a death sentence,"
sure,
right?
yeah. I
Like,
mean,
what
yeah. I mean, that's um, I don't know. You've edited other memoirs, and I mean, kind of like some of the personal stories. But for
Mhm,
me, I think it was really really difficult to tell my parents, and
mhm.
um, I think they were really really they did and part of the I'm gonna go forward to one of your questions was, well, what is the difficult part of that you almost left out of the book? And I have
Cool.
to I'm going to jump ahead to that because I almost left the part out about my family, my parents dying, and the
Mhm,
will and the problems with the will, and how I was left
mm,
with it, and then put back in and put all of that stuff. Um, though feel like that had a specific relationship to my being gay and being HIV positive, because when I did come out um, to my
mm.
mother and father, they did go to their lawyer and change the will because they thought I was going to die. And
Oh
so,
my.
I mean, they said, well, he's not going to live. Let's give the money to the other kids.
Wow. Mhm.
And then, and so I thought, well, maybe that's an important part of the book, even though it's, yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, what an emotional ride that takes you on, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
it really does. Yeah. And, of course, a lot of that I didn't really find out until they had passed away. But,
mm, mm.
uh, I did eventually find out how the kind of machinations that they went through when they heard that their second son who was a lawyer, and I was um, the executor of their estate and all of that stuff. And
Mm,
so, I mean, it was kind of a double whammy. I mean, coming out was one thing. That's the
right.
other thing that's really interesting about Undetectable is,
Mm,
I wanted that to relate both to the undetectability of being gay and in certain cultures, as well as detectable part of HIV. So there's kind of a double whammy there for B coming out. There are two coming outs that the book deals with in some ways. So it was difficult. It was a good, quite hard, because part of my father was dying when I told him, and my mother felt like I should not tell him because he was sick, and I decided that I wasn't going to allow him not to know, because he deserved to know. And I just felt like, I had to tell him. I'm not going to tell one and not tell the other, because I don't think it's fair. I don't care how sick he was. So, and my mother was quite upset about that.
But, yeah, understood.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, these are really hard, family stuff, and everybody has family stuff, it seems to me, except you. But yeah, no. So, yeah, and some people have no family, so at least I had, a family to tell, and my sister was very supportive. My older sister was extremely supportive. So,
fabulous, yeah,
because I have an episode where I finally, it's very true that it's hard to tell people, because once I did convert, I left New York and came back to Buffalo to finish my dissertation. I shuffled back over to Buffalo from New York City, and was in therapy. And then I had this priest that was a therapist, and he convinced me to call my sister. And I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to tell anybody but him that I was positive.
Yeah.
And he, after many, many sessions, and he said, "Look, you've got to tell somebody." So and then my sister flew out and to Buffalo. And,
wow.
That was an important moment in the whole story. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So obviously what's at stake is death, right?
Yeah.
And potential alienation and isolation from those with whom you love and care for.
Yeah.
But within Undetectable, what kind of emotional ride can a reader expect?
Well, I mean, the reactions that I've had about the book is that it's really intense and overly honest, if you can be overly honest.
Okay. I didn't think so.
It has sex in it, of course, because you can't talk about HIV as a gay man,
well,
unless you talk about sex. So,
yeah, but I mean, it wasn't like it was you wrote erotica. I mean,
erotica, no, it wasn't. So, yeah. But those aren't emotions. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think there's going to be shock, sorrow, and then hopefully the sarcastic part will lead to some humor, like the satire of the doctor, like Dr. Root in Oregon, who took pleasure in anal exams, and so that's all done in a kind of tongue-in-cheek way. That hopefully to get a rise out of a couple of readers. As you know, my style tends to be pretty ironic and sarcastic, and but then it tries to land on, and I think this is where you kind of helped me. It also you wanted me to clear out some of that facade of irony and sarcasm and political satire, and get down to what it really felt like. And then I think that that was one of the challenges of the book, to be emotionally honest.
I think it's one of the because I remember the first time when we were going over it, and there were whole sections that, I mean, you and I just sat down and I was like, okay, why is this important? Why are you positioning it this way? Right?
Yeah.
Like why are we not delving deeper within the harder emotions of this? Right? Because anyone who's naturally sarcastic, which I completely own, I am one of them. Sarcasm, it's a self-defense, right? So it can be very easy, especially with such challenging topics, to go and hide within that self-defense mechanism. And so you're still addressing the issues, but it's allowing you to have this wall of protection, right?
Yeah.
And I thought one thing you did wonderfully was that, but having that sarcastic style enabled it to really have much more humor within it, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it actually made it much more accessible for many people who may not be familiar with gay culture and may not be familiar with, you know, what it's like to be in that kind of situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I was hoping to have that work. And and then hoping also to kind of open up a little bit more. With the book was very much like self-therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really do have to face, some of your demons, like, some of the mistakes you make about some of the illusions you have about yourself, and some of the rationales you use for trying to meet people and think about yourself in certain ways. I'm being a little bit, I'm being somewhat too general right now, but if you take the episode, for example, in Oregon, where I meet this tennis player, and I don't tell him that I'm positive right away because I'm enjoying. I haven't been with anybody for so long that I'm kind of enjoying just being with him, playing tennis, going home, and then eventually, we can start dating and making love, and then eventually, after the first date, where we really didn't do anything unsafe at all, I've got to, take him out to the park and tell him I'm positive, which I did. And he got extremely upset. It was 90 something, right? 93, maybe 92. So, we're in the thick of it. And, I kind of really beat myself up about that, but I had to kind of tell that, I had to negotiate that kind of story in an honest way. You know what I mean? So, and get torn between the need to have someone, to date someone, and the need to be totally honest up front all the time. Like, hi, I'm Casey. I'm HIV positive. I mean, that's a hard road to follow, but I don't,
especially in the 80s and 90s, when there was such a heavy stigma associated with being HIV positive, that if that's the approach, you walk in and say, hi, I'm Casey, I'm HIV positive, right? The number of people who would immediately and be like, right?
Yeah, nice meeting you, right?
Right, like, see ya.
Yeah, I know, and is that relevant today? I think in some ways it is. It's relevant to any kind of, different kinds of identity features that you might have. Like, hello, I've got, so I'm sober, or I have a disability, or whatever. I mean, so it really, for me, I really learned personally, and I hope the book allows people to catch on to it, that you really need to be a little bit more, or there's things about people identifiers that are not who the person really is underneath. And it's really important to get past those, to be less judgmental. So,
absolutely. You said that beautifully, actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. So the book was hard. It was hard to write, and I had a friend that just read it, and there's a lot of chapters in the book, and he's a therapist, and because there are 57 chapters in this little 200 or 300 page book, right?
Yeah, but it's got a nice pace to it.
Right. So there's all these episodes, and he goes, all those, I thought all the episodes are good because I don't want the reader to get too bogged down.
Yeah.
And I like having, serial chapters. But he also said that's kind of indicative of the way people process trauma.
Oh.
So in his work, and they dip into different episodes one by one. They don't create a kind of overall overarching arc. Even though my book does have a chronology to it,
Yeah.
it does have a lot of individual places where things go wrong or right.
Mhm.
So I thought it was an interesting comment that he made, because he's also, he deals with therapy, trauma and therapy, and
Mm.
said, this episodic method of describing what happened to you is, indicative of people that, face trauma, whether it's automatic, I mean, I think finding out you're positive in 1989 or 90 when I did, is
Mhm.
pretty traumatic.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So,
well,
yeah.
I honestly, I thought that having the shorter episodic structure, chapter
Yeah.
structure, it enabled you to actually open up so that you could address multiple themes as
Mhm.
you know, as you've already mentioned, regarding talking to your parents, talking to your siblings, you know, in letting your lover know that you were positive, and just even opening up your world, right?
Yeah.
Which, if this had more of a classic chapter structure, you wouldn't have been able to really delve into those in that same
Mhm.
manner. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, no, I think ultimately it was a good, I think we made a good decision. You made a really good decision to get me to hone it down and, get to the meat of each happening, and
Mhm.
move on to the next one, rather than dwell too long on, all of the periphery. Um, and then also, in the original, uh, as both you and I know, in the original, I had all of these other ethnic accounts of other people that had HIV, and I had their stories woven in. And I still have my trip to Africa,
Mhm.
and I insisted on keeping the episode of the guy that worked at Red Lobster, that
Mhm.
at, at a self help group that we had in Buffalo, because his
Mhm.
story was so mind blowing. So those
Yeah.
little, so you were allowed these little snippets where I go outside of myself and say, "This, I heard this story from this person." Um, and then a couple of, some of the HIV support groups I were in, because that was part of my life, is going to support groups.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, I thought the way that you it wasn't more so about like eliminating, it was about how can we find the ones that were most complementary to your own narrative,
Uh-huh.
and that what would enable it to broaden and open up for others. Yeah, I thought you did that gorgeously.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. I think we kept one, the really ones the ones that were really important for me,
mhm,
like going to the slums of Nairobi and going to a support group,
mm,
uh, was really, compelling for me, and in ways that uh, brought me into contact with a world of HIV that I would not have otherwise.
mm,
And so I think, comparisons. They say comparisons are odious, but um, they also, comparisons can, they can heal, and they can create compassion. Um,
and piggybacking on that, and you've already mentioned that this has been compared to therapy, basically.
yeah.
How do you feel that this changed you? How did you benefit from writing this story?
Yeah, that's a really. I think, I want to say that it made me more active in with the HIV community, but I was already being active when, I part of my story is how I became active.
Mhm,
So the actual writing of it, and publishing it and talking about it, had a kind of different effect on me. Um,
mm,
which is that, I think, what your question is,
mhm,
what happens when you finish the book and people read it and talk to you about it. One of the things that's really interesting is, I found out how private of a person I was, and since I was so honest in this book,
oh, okay. Mhm,
because I just felt like, so many memoirs kind of scratch the surface of their problem. I'll talk
mhm,
about Butterflies, if you're Nabokov, which is a great memoir, of course. But how many of them really delve specifically into um, the 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 difficulties of one's life and emotions and stuff? So I really had a kind of kiss and tell um, kind of feeling about the book. And when people read it, especially people that know me, they go, "My God, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know this about you at all." So it gave me a kind of like, whoa, I need to be more. I think I've become more emotionally honest with my friends.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
I think, it's weird to say, but I think, there's a whole part of me that I'm being kind of guarded and somewhat, shy a little bit. I mean, maybe I don't sound that way on the YouTube, but, but, I am a little bit, more like an academic guy, and I like to write and the poetry and all this stuff that I do. So I find I've always, and I don't know about you because you're also, a writer. So, a lot of people that write find their deepest self in the word. And what I found out from writing this book is that, I've got to think about relationships outside of the world of writing, and how to be emotionally honest in the real world, which, I mean, it's something that I think writers need to think about. And that's one part of what I got out of the book for sure.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I've had really good feedback, and a lot of people, thanked me for writing it and said it's really honest and the story that needed to be told and all that stuff. So I've gotten some good feedback on the book.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you should.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to market it, of course, and that's one of the hard things to do, is to get the book out there. But I still think one thing about this book is that people are still looking at it, still buying it. So it came out before, and there's still interest, and I still get emails about it and stuff. So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah. So, I mean, and I think also the other thing I want to say about memoirs is, might be a little bit off topic, but this is the flip side of being a writer, is that I think a good memoir also pays attention to prose and to, and to the delight in being and express in not only just emotions, but the whole scenario of whatever you're writing about, whether it be butterflies or whomever. I know you've got other memoir writers, but like I'm reading this book, Raising Hair, by this English woman. I don't know if you've heard of it. Yeah. And, so part of it is just her description of the landscape. And so there's a way in which a good memoir is really delights, even though if it's got a subject like mine, you delight in the way that you be able to express what's going on for the subject. And so I think, the prose part of it is really important, because like in narrative and fiction, you can just tell a story. Like, that book that won the Booker Prize, Flesh, it just tells a story, basically. But with a memoir, it's usually personal. So you have to be able to create a style that allows the reader to get into the subject in a kind of more internal way.
Oh, that's an excellent point.
Yeah. I don't know. What's your experience with the other memoirs that you've published in terms of how they operate successfully?
The ones that are the most successful are ones that, like yours, you're coming into it and you're owning your own voice. You're owning your own self, your own persona, which may sound like, yeah, of course. But the reality is it's very easy to create that emotional separation, to make yourself less centered within it. And the flip side of that is we've seen lots of memoirs where they use it as a means of venting. And that is not actually successful. Yeah. Because if you're using it purely as a means to vent, oftentimes you're going way deep into emotions that, I mean, yes, you've experienced them and everything, but you're alienating the reader by not taking the time to sit back and say, like I was talking to Scott Leva last night about his memoir about basically being Spider-Man, right?
Oh, right.
And
Yeah, I talked to him. I have spoken
yeah,
to him.
and a lot of when he and I were working on his memoir, it was, well, I would ask the questions like, unknown caller, why do you think, sorry, it's really rude of people to keep calling me. Um why do you think your father responded that way, or why do you think your girlfriend responded that way, or why do you think, like, you know I don't take away that someone was a jerk, right?
Mhm.
But it it's much more accessible and much more understandable, both for you as the writer as well as for the reader, what to when you take the time to do like you did, right? To understand why your mother may feel that way, or your father may feel that way, or the hot tennis player, why he may freak out at the understanding of you being HIV positive.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, and that is not easy. It's
Yeah.
really, in my experience, really being writing a very successful memoir, you've got to understand why you're going into it, why you're writing it, what's your purpose, and then doing that emotional work
Yeah.
to dive into the whys of
Right.
you as well as those who are prominent within in the
Yeah.
memoir.
That's a really, I mean, the last point is really important. I think you have to be able to understand the perspective of the people that you're confronting with your issue, um,
Hmm.
and not, just characterize them as, ignorant or, uh, you know, uh, somehow an obstacle to your success. Um,
Hmm.
so, and that's, yeah, I mean, that kind of empathy for people that you run up against is, can be hard. Um,
Oh
be-
yeah. I mean, that can be self-defeating, not being able to
yeah,
have that kind of empathy, not
yeah,
just for the memoir itself, but for you as a human being,
that's
right?
that's true. Yeah, yeah. I haven't really thought about that, but yeah, some of the most difficult passages in the book were for me to try to understand the perspective of the lover that either intentionally or not intentionally gave me HIV, and then the uh, the situation with my lover who was not positive, who I broke up with, um, and to kind of understand his perspective.
Hmm.
Uh, it was, so that was difficult. It's difficult so the memoir writer has to go outside of herself and see why people are reacting to the memoir writer in the way they are. And so, yeah, you make a really good point there. I think those are some of the obstacles I had with the book was understanding the people that I came into touch with as a result of the memoir, and understanding them in a more compassionate way, or you know, uh, uh, from their point of view. Let's put it
Hmm.
that way. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a big issue.
No,
Yeah.
I think you the fact that you were willing to explore that, and you were willing to dive into it and
Hmm.
really discover that empathy, which, I mean, it's not that it didn't exist, but you definitely in revisions dived much deeper into it.
Yeah.
Um, Tremendous, both for you as well as for the reader.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, Now, what all I think you've kind of touched on this, but just to be sure,
We've got
what almost didn't make it into the book, and why did you keep it in?
Um, well, there was a section in the book because my long term partner, who I got together with after I was HIV positive, and I was with for
Mhm,
14 years,
mhm,
um, we kind of raised his daughter, his adopted
mhm,
daughter,
mhm,
and
mhm,
I have I and Well, the story tells about how she found out I was HIV positive, and how I was kind of forced to tell her that I was,
Mhm.
um, even though she was like maybe 8 or 9 years old.
Mm.
Um, and that was a really difficult negotiation, and I really felt like I was cornered into doing it,
Mm.
and was really upset about that. That story is in the book,
Mhm.
but like a lot of memoirs, you have to wonder, who can you talk about and who can't you talk about? And so I went back and forth on that because she was a child, and um, she had two daddies, and she spent half her time with her mother and half the time with us, and so she had and she was adopted, so there was a lot of issues going on there. And I'm friends with her now, and she has
Mhm.
3 kids and lives in Southern California.
Mhm.
Um, and she's a great person. But back
Mhm.
then, we were just oil and water
Yeah.
basically, because I was uh, s- uh, you know, um, the evil stepfather, or whatever you want to call me.
Mhm.
The outlaw. I call myself the evil outlaw. So an in-law outlaw, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
because I pulled her away from her mother and father were together before we got together, and so
Mhm.
she blamed me for that, and so we had a
Mhm.
lot of really difficult times, and I think maybe, I don't know, she might have been in fifth grade, sixth grade, or something. I'm not. She was not quite. She wasn't 14 or yet. She was somewhere there, and we had some therapy sessions individually, and then we all got together for one.
Mhm.
And in that therapy session, I was confronted with the fact that I hadn't told her that I was HIV positive, and
Mm.
I wasn't alerted to that before I got into that meeting,
Mhm.
and um, she got really upset, and
Mm.
uh, I really felt totally uncomfortable. And then when I was writing it, I was going like, "Yeah, this happened to me," and it really was it had a huge impact on me.
Right.
So I felt like that's why I kept it in, because
Yeah.
given what you're talking about, and what you're talking about in memoir, um, it became something that I felt I had to do, even though I didn't know whether it was,
Ah,
because it's nonfiction, right? It's truth,
yeah. Yeah.
but in the end, I put it in there,
Mhm.
and then
And
I tried, yeah,
I was gonna we actually did talk through that. I mean, that was a section that, you and I riffed off of, like, is this something that I thought would be beneficial? And
yeah,
honestly, the number of people I knew who, had, I just thought there were so many people who needed to hear it, you know,
yeah,
that even though it was really super hard, it it just seemed like, I mean, like, that's the whole point, right? Like, you
yeah,
know, writing the memoir not only as a means of self-healing, but also as a way of, allowing others to know that, A, they're not alone, and B, possibly guide them, in their own
yeah,
traumas.
yeah,
So,
and the way that they disclose and or don't disclose, and what it means to disclose, and how even there's probably more drama inside of the subject who doesn't want to tell people than the drama that occurs when they do disclose. I
yeah.
mean, there's a whole way about keeping it inside is almost more traumatic than talking about it at some point, you know.
Mhm.
And uh, I think I don't know. I mean, it was a difficult part to write,
Mhm.
and uh, yeah, I think, but probably an important one, because when you get into family systems,
Mhm.
uh, and if they're gay family systems, the families we choose,
Mhm.
uh, you're going to run into these kind of situations with kids, with uncles, with aunts, with best friends, with childhood friends, with
Mhm.
you uh, whatever company you're working for. So you've got to come out to your employer, you got to come out to your family, you got to come out to your high school buddies. There's a whole array of different kinds of, and then people that you meet, that you
Yeah.
date, right? We didn't
Mhm.
leave that off. So yeah, those are all different, points of contention around disclosure that is really hard,
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so yeah, and I think it's it can play outside of it of HIV. It can play into other kinds of things that people need to disclose.
Oh
You know,
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that it will cross over that way
Oh yeah.
for readers. Um,
Now,
yeah,
who do you feel like will actually fall hardest for this book?
I saw that in the notes. Um, uh, well, you mean in terms of liking it? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, I mean, I think it hasn't really fallen around sexual orientation for the people I've talked to, actually. I mean, yes, gay men who are positive that read it go, yeah, this is like been very much like my experience or not like my experience, but boy, you've gone through a lot, and I really appreciate this being on page because, because I'm down in Palm Springs, I'm in, Let's Kick Ass, which is a AIDS support group for long-term survivors, and a lot of guys have read it and they really liked it. But then also I had, old friends and students that I've had that have read it that are straight, that, have fallen for it because they feel like they're getting an inside picture to a friend of theirs that they gotten otherwise. And then other people go, well, I learned a lot about HIV from the book, because there might be, the science is a little difficult. I had some help with it. I talked to, some infectious disease doctors to make sure I got all my, jargon correct. But there's all that education part where people go, wow, I didn't know, all about how the virus works and then how the drugs work. And then, so kind of, there's an educational element that people, fall for, but, people that love nonfiction like that part of it.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, agreed. It's very well baked into the memoir. Yeah.
So I bake in a little bit of history. People that are also interested in the history of the HIV movement and stuff like that. So there's an ACT UP section and stuff like that in there. So yeah, I mean,
awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that and there's a chronology. I mean, the book goes from the 89 or so to and you have chapters that go before that, and it goes up to 2015 more or less. So and so and I've been able to publish a couple of the essays on my interviews in Africa and India in a separate book, which has been really helpful. And I've written a lot of poems about all of this stuff, which has been good. And I'm excited about. I have a novel that is going to be published in 27 with a small publisher called Rattling Good Yarns, and they're out of LA somewhere. Yeah, so I finally found a publisher for that, and this guy does really nice queer books, and I'm really excited about it. But he has it right now. He's editing it. I'm waiting for the phone call to tell me to slash half of it. I know those editors.
Yeah, I know. We're malicious. We really are.
You can be tough cookies. I mentioned, but yeah. So I'm still writing, and so that's good. It keeps me going.
So okay, I know we're down to like the last 5 minutes, so I want to hit. So if someone's reading the first, say, 20 pages, what really keeps them going?
Well, it's the idea of the first 20 pages is to really, it's kind of a romance, actually. I mean, the whole idea, first section is, about me moving to New York to get a advanced course in Latin, which I needed for my degree. So I went to Midtown and joined the Latin and Greek Institute, and Then I fell in love with, the guy I fell in love with down in
Mhm.
Central Park. And so the first part, the 20 pages of the book is really supposed to be a kind of love story
Mhm.
in some ways, right? I mean, and then, the foreshadowing of HIV is there a little bit, but, that part of it doesn't really enter into it until,
Mhm.
um, I kind of, set up myself as this graduate student about to, ABD, who's finishing his dissertation, um,
Mhm.
who goes down to New York, first time in New York, first time from the West. And, I'm just wide eyed and bushy tailed about being in Manhattan, which, anybody would be, I think, unless you're, crazy. Such a fabulous place just to walk around and have fun. And, so there's all of that excitement about being in
Mhm.
New York and being almost, finished my dissertation and my new career and all of that stuff. The first 20 pages is supposed to pull you into all of the promise
Mhm.
that's associated with my situation when,
Mhm.
at that point in my life, and the kind of romance that I get involved with. And then, because the book has that trajectory of thinking about desire
Mhm.
and love and its dangers or its possible
Mhm.
uh, turns.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
totally agree.
so
I
yeah, I mean, I think there's also kind of a sense that pride before the fall kind of thing. It's not really fiction. There's a whole. I think there's a sense when you're reading it that you know that something's going to happen.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely.
So yeah, so that's the hook of the book in the first
Mhm.
section. Um,
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, so and then my lover has to um, apply for a green card, and
Mhm.
that he has to take an HIV test as a result of that, and then
Mm.
the story goes from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a hard one. That was a hard chapter to write.
oh,
Um,
yeah,
one of
absolutely.
uh, and also I really feel I'm still Facebook friends with who the guy who gave me HIV positive, and we're still he's surviving, he's living in, and so
Mhm.
um, you talk about empathy. I really feel conflicted about that whole situation, but I
Mhm.
just couldn't stay with him. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, understandable.
Yep.
In one sentence, why should someone pick up the book?
In one sentence,
Mhm.
uh, you know, in one sentence, it's I think someone should pick up the book because they learn how to or they can experience what it's like to have to not overcome but face and work through or
Mm,
experience, because Victor Turner has this whole essay. He's an anthropologist. All that essay about working through the word experience, and I
mhm.
think that yeah, I think the book will in one sentence. Sorry,
No,
one
no,
sentence. The
you're fine.
this book will help you understand how to experience trauma,
Mm.
not get over it, not overcome it, not but
Mm.
just how to experience. And that,
Wow.
yeah, right. So I don't want to, I don't want to see that it's some, the whole magic pill thing is something that the first part of the book is
Mhm.
constantly working against in some ways. So yeah,
No, that's fair.
yeah,
Now,
that was
and anyone watching, just check out the link in um, the title.
yeah.
Um, it is Undetectable, by Casey Charles. It is available in audiobook, paperback, and ebook. And until the end of January, it'll be available in ebook for 99 cents. I really, 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 really encourage you to pick it up. This was one of those that, I mean, it was just such an absolute pleasure to work with Casey.
Mhm.
Um, And again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh,
And
thank you.
and don't forget, guys, we actually have another one of these behind the scenes tomorrow night, where I am going to be interviewing both the author of No Fucks Given as well as his editor. And they politely put it as a creative nonfiction. The reason for that is it's basically his telling of his experience of being an addict and joining the military during 9/11, thinking he's going to like save the world. And we'll just dive into all of the what he basically uncovers in those experiences. So again, thank you, Casey, as
All right,
always.
Lisa.
Adore you. And
All
guys tomorrow night.
right. Great. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it. Bye.